So what we want to do here is switch to raycasting edge mode by hitting I on the keyboard. Select this edge, Alt and middle mouse button click this edge here to select the entire loop all the way around. And if we look, we'll see that we in fact did select the entire loop all the way around very easily. Fortunately, XSI has that ability. Let's right click on the object, hit bevel components to split that in two, and then just change the distance parameter so those edges get farther away from each other and closer to these edges right here at the top and the bottom. It may be a little bit difficult to see working in sub Ds because of all the wireframes and stuff that are going on, but you'll get used to it. It's really no big deal. Okay, let's close that PPG. Now what I'm going to do is hit E on the keyboard to switch to edge rectangular selection mode. And I'm going to drag a selection and select all these edges in between right here. And with those edges selected, I'm going to do the same thing. Right click, split edges with split control, and use the slider to move them toward the bottom edge. So move them toward the bottom real close, almost to where it's touching. Okay, pretty good. We're going to need another edge though, so let's go ahead and select these edges here in the middle. Let's right click, split edges with split control, move this one up to where it's almost touching the top edge. So move it real close up here in this area. Okay, let's select these edges right here, right click, go to split edges with split control, and we're going to move these edges downward like this, real close to the bottom, almost touching but not exactly. Right about there is pretty good. I want to go ahead and select these edges again, right click and add another split with split control, and move this up so it's almost touching the top edges up here. Okay, so now we can see that we have much sharper edges, and if I hide the wireframe cage from the low res object, we can see now that we have much sharper edges for this bullet, and the real shape is starting to come out better. We can see that when we turned it to sub Ds, we lost some of the volume of the bullet itself. So we're going to have to regain that volume back. But we're not going to do that just yet. We're going to do that toward the end when we're done detailing this shell casing. So, holding down Control and hitting the plus key on the number pad of your keyboard, let's activate the wireframe cage again and get back to work. Okay, I'm going to hit E on the keyboard to switch to edge mode. I'm going to select these edges right here. That's toward the top right here, toward the top of the shell casing. I'm going to right click and go to split edges with split control. I'm going to use the slider to move these edges down like this. I'm going to select these edges again, right click on the top of the object, split edges with split control. I'm going to move these edges up like this. Okay, now I'm going to grab these edges here, underneath here, right click, split edges with split control. I'm going to use the ratio slider to move the edges up and get them close to this area up here. Okay, so we want that edge to get very close to the top right there to sharpen that up real good. Okay, so now the top right here is sharpened up pretty nicely. Again, the shortcut for using the render region tool is Q on the keyboard. Okay, let's do this bottom part down here real quick. I'm going to use U on the keyboard to switch to polygon raycasting mode. I'm going to go ahead and raycast select these polygons down here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Control D to extrude. Then I'm going to use the scale tool. I'm going to scale this extrude down to about right here. Then I'm going to hit Control D to extrude again. And I'm going to pull this to about right here is pretty good. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch back to polygon raycasting mode. Select this polygon right there. Alt and middle mouse button click this polygon right here. And it's going to select that entire loop of polygons right there. Let me close that PPG. Now, with this loop selected, what we're going to do, and so you can see this better, I'm going to hit F12 to maximize this viewport. There we go. That's nice. I'm going to hit Control D to extrude. And I'm going to pull this extrusion up just a little tiny bit like this, a little real small amount. Then I'm going to hit Control D again, pull this up to about, let me see, to about right there is pretty good. And I'm going to hit Control D again. I'm going to pull that extrusion up just a little tiny bit, just a hair. Okay, so we end up with something like this. Alright, we're going to leave that area alone for the moment. We're going to work on the top over here. We have to sharpen this area up over here on the top. So let me hit F12 and let's look at our side view here. I'm going to hit E to switch to edge mode. Select all the edges down the middle right here. Right click. I'm going to use split edges with split control. Move that split up to where I'm almost touching the top edge right there. Right up here, I want to almost be touching that edge. Now this part has to be pretty sharp. So I'm going to hit U on the keyboard to switch to polygon raycasting mode. Hit F12 to maximize that. I'm going to hit Control D to extrude, and then I'm going to use the scale tool to scale this down just a bit like this and make it pretty sharp. Okay, so something like that's pretty good. Right, not bad. So here's our shell casing so far. Looks pretty similar to the picture. We've got the nice detail. We've got the nice sharp edges like we wanted. Okay, not bad. Not bad at all. Alright, now let's make the actual bullet that sits on the top of this shell casing. So we can see here in the reference image where the actual head of the bullet is, or the bullet itself. Let's hit U on the keyboard to activate polygon raycasting mode. Make sure you have these polygons right here selected. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Control D to extrude. I'm going to scale this extrusion down just a little bit, like this maybe. Then I'm going to hit Control D to extrude again. I'm going to move this extrusion up like so to about right here. Then I'm going to hit Control D again, move the extrusion up toward the tip of the bullet, and then I'm going to scale it down to make that top part of the bullet right there. Okay, now what we need to get a little bit more detail here, actually this bullet does not look too bad. I think I might end up leaving it like that. Well, we need to fix this top part here because it doesn't look so good. That's because we have a bunch of triangles up here, and sub Ds, well, there's kind of this myth out there that you should never use triangles of sub Ds. That's not entirely true. The reason people say that is because people say that with the assumption that a good sub D is a smooth sub D. But sub Ds can have bumps and have irregularities to them and imperfections, just like objects in real life. And actually, when you're modeling something realistic, it's preferable to create small imperfections that are very subtle. The human eye just catches that, and it could mean a difference between your object being photorealistic or not. So, I'm going to switch to edge mode. I'm going to select all these edges here, right click. I'm going to go to split edges with split control. I'm going to move the split up toward the tip of the bullet. Up there is pretty good. Okay, so now the real small tip of the bullet right there is flattened out, just like in the picture. Because if I move this down, well, it's hard to see in the picture, but if you go ahead and do some research on the internet, you'll find that the tips of bullets are actually, they taper down a pretty good amount, and some bullets are actually flat on the end. I actually have a real some real 5.56ers that I have in front of me that I can use to for reference. Now, most people don't have rifle rounds lying around that you can use for reference. Please don't ask me why I have those lying around, but you should go ahead and use the internet. The internet's a great resource for these kinds of things. So let's select all these edges right here. I'm going to right click, go to split edges with split control, and then I'm going to move these splits down I'm going to move them very, very low to the bottom here because I want that to be real tight and I want that to be really sharp. Because, see, the problem is, if I hit F12 and maximize my perspective view here, my camera view, you notice that when I get really close, even though it's pretty sharp, it still looks like this piece of the shell casing blends into the bullet. Now in real life, that's not the way it works. So we're going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hit Control Z to undo a couple of times until I undo this edge that I created right there. Okay. What I'm going to do instead is something a little bit different. I'm going to come up here to the top of the bullet. I'm going to hit U on the keyboard to activate polygon raycasting mode. Make sure these top polygons are selected. Then hold down Shift and hit the equal sign next to the backspace key to grow the selection. Grow the selection to the point where you have all the polygons of the bullet itself, not the shell casing, just the bullet selected. In this case, I do. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to right click and then I'm going to go to these two options here. I have Extract Polygons Keep and Extract Polygons Delete. If I hit Keep, I'm going to create a new bullet head and I'm still going to have the original in the scene. That's not what I want. I want to basically break the bullet head off of the shell casing. So I'm going to click on Extract Polygons Delete. And when I do that, the bullet head becomes its own new object, completely separated and detached from the shell casing. And by default, it gets knocked down to a low-res cage. So let me close that PPG. All I have to do is, with this object selected, the bullet itself, just hit the plus key on the number pad of your keyboard to convert it to sub-D form again. And there we go. Now, if I come down here, you'll notice that the two surfaces are not continuous anymore. Now, it doesn't look like the bullet is welded to the shell casing. It looks like they're two separate objects, which is exactly the look that we're supposed to go for. So if I do a quick render region here, we can see that now it looks like it's actually two separate objects, which it literally is. Okay, now for the tip of the bullet, I actually have in front of me a couple of different 5.56ers, and sometimes they'll have this flat tip up here. Sometimes they'll have a ball tip. You can do it pretty much any which way that you want. If you want to give it more of a roundish tip, I'll show you how to do that. Select these top polygons up here and let's scale them down like this. And that'll give you a much rounder tip on the top of the bullet there. There we go. So that looks pretty good. Okay, that's not too bad. That's not bad at all. Okay, great. Alright, I'm going to go down here to the bottom of the bullet and we're going to finish this bullet off by creating the area where the primer goes down here. So what I'm going to do is hit Control D to extrude, scale this down to about right here is pretty good. That's about the size of the primer on the 5.56er. Okay, not bad. I'm going to hit Control D to extrude again. I'm going to pull this extrusion in something like this. Now what I'm going to do is hit U on the keyboard to switch to polygon raycasting mode. Select this polygon, Alt and middle mouse button click this polygon. You'll select the entire loop of polygons all the way around. Hit Control D to extrude. I'm going to pull this extrusion up just a little bit. Then I'm going to hit Control D to extrude again and pull that one up more to about right here. Okay, that's not bad. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to polygon raycasting mode, select these polygons, hit Control D to extrude, scale this down, something like this. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this down just a little bit, just to give it a little bit more detail right there. Okay. And what I can do is go over here to my shading options and turn on headlight, so now I can see underneath the model. I probably should have done that earlier, sorry. But there you go. Okay. So there's our bullet, our realistic bullet here with all the sharp edges it needs, plus some nice soft curvature. There's the bullet itself. Very good. Now that looks pretty good. That looks pretty great. Looks just like a the 556 I've got in front of me on my desk right now. Awesome. Okay, so we're done with the bullet.